Okay, good evening. Welcome to tonight's shir. In the halacha slot, what we're going to do is going to be a series this week and next week. Good evening. Building up to Shavuos, because tonight, 2 weeks, is already Shavuos. So this week we're going to discuss a very interesting topic, and that is on Kriyas HaTorah on Shavuos morning. We of course Leining Asseres Hadibros, and the minhag in most of our shuls is to stand, but actually it's not so clear. And there's some opposition to this, as we'll see, and that's what we'll discuss tonight. And next week, for the halacha slot, we'll discuss, Mitzvah Hashem, barbecues on Yom Tov. Whether you're allowed to barbecue on Yom Tov, it's an old chestnut, very interesting topic, but that's for next week. So two pre-Shavuos shiurim. So standing for the reading, for the leining of the Asseres Hadibros. What is the background? What is the issue? So the starting point is the Gemara in Brachos Yud Beis Amud Aleph. The Gemara says over there, V'koirin Asseres Hadibros Shema v'hoyim shemoya v'yome emes v'yatziv v'avoda b'rchus kahanim. This is actually a Mishnah in Talmud and quoted by the Gemara in Brachos, and it says over there that Chazal wanted to introduce Asseres Hadibros in our regular davening in the brachas of Kriya Shema. In other words, there'd be Baruch Hu. You say the first bracha of Shema, the bracha before Shema, and then you would actually say Asseres Hadibros, and then you'd carry on, Shema, Emes V'yatziv, etc. Omer Rav Yehuda Mashmuel, Af Begvulin Bikshu Likrus Kain. They wanted to do that to actually introduce this in the Gvulin beyond Yerushalayim, and Shekva Bitlu Mipnei Tarumas Haminim. But they annulled saying Asseres Hadibros in davening because of Tarumas Haminim. What does that mean? So Rashi says, Shelo Yomru La'ameh Ha'aretz Ein Shah Torah Emes. If you put too much emphasis on the Asseres Hadibros, they'll say, well, this is special. The rest of the Torah is not perhaps true. V'teidush ein koirin and Masham HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'shalom mipiv b'Sinai. And therefore, we only say what's really true, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually said on Har Sinai, the Asseres Hadibros, and therefore it will give rise to apikarsis regarding the rest of the Torah. And in fact, the Shulchan Aruch says, he actually says Tovel in the beginning in Siman Aleph, in the very first Siman in whole of Shulchan Aruch, the Machaber says Tovel Ema Pash Sakei, the Pash Zamon, Va'aseres Hadibros. It's actually good to say it. However, says the Ramah, V'dafka B'yochit, not in B'tzibur, Ema Aseres Hadibros, Avol also Lo Ema B'tzibur, quoting the Chuvas of the Rashba. And again, he's got the same concern, L'chora, based on the Gemara in Brachos, of Tarumas Haminim. Now, the Rambam is very strong on this. The Rambam not only wrote the Yad HaChazaka, his famous halacha work, the Yad HaChazaka, and also the Mer Nevuchim, Pirish Mishnayos, but he also wrote Shailas and Shuvas. People wrote to the Rambam, and he corresponded and he gave Shuvas answers back. Now, the question put to the Rambam was on this very topic. Do you stand or not for the Asseres Hadibros? So the sheila is this: Alamidas b'nei Adam be'ez kriyas esa hadibros. V'yesh echad min hachachamim shetziva b'zeh. One of the chachamim said you should stand for the Asseres Hadibros. V'yesh mi shemona zeh v'hei, and others said no, it's not the right thing to do. And the person who says you shouldn't stand says this is the question to the Rambam. V'hevi raya miyos chazal, because the Gemara says in Brachos Yud Beis, this is our Gemara, bitlu kriyasam im kriya shema mipnei haminim. Because of heretics, because of apikarsim, who said that the Asseres Hadibros has some sort of superiority to the rest of the Torah. You should have shouted a person who stands during the Asseres Hadibros, because this act is heretical. Like I say, because the people will think that there's something special about the Asseres Hadibros, it's superior on a different plane to the rest of the Torah. That was the question put to the Rambam, i.e., what should I do? Who's correct? Says the Rambam, that which the person suggested, that you sit during the Asseres Hadibros, hu harayu. That's correct. You should sit during the Asseres Hadibros. V'ra'ayosov kulav amitiyim. And his proofs are solid. Kafidas anshe harois. Ve'ein lahisif olav. and I don't need to add anything to it. He's quite right. You should sit during the Asseres Hadibros. And anyone who has a minhag to stand, says the Rambam, you should stop them. They should all sit. Because it could lead to a detraction in emunah that some parts of the Torah are more important than the other parts. And you should close the door in front of any possible openings which are going to sort of shake the emunah of Klal Yisrael. So the Rambam is very strong against it. Now, a few centuries later, the Marshal, this is 16th century Poland, or Eastern Europe, the Marshal was a cousin of the Ramah. And just to give you a time frame, he outlived the Ramah, and they have a lot of correspondence together. The Marshal was a very colourful, very fiery personality, very different to the Ramah. And anyway, in the Shailas and Shuvas of the Marshal, he talks about his daily davening, and it's fascinating. And in the daily davening, he makes reference to Asseres Hadibros, and he makes reference to this thing. Shuv ani noheg. This is in the middle of the Shuvas. This is Siman Samach Dalet. Shuv ani noheg lo ma'Asseres Hadibros kodim baruch she'ama. I have the practice, says the Marshal, of saying the Asseres Hadibros before baruch she'ama every morning. She'ama b'kol ram, and I do it with a loud voice. What about the Rambam? We just said. Af she'ha Rambam kosav b'tshuva le'isur nira be'enai. I am of the opinion that davka lekava b'birchas yotzeh. What was the opposition? To put it in Birchas Kriya Shema. V'chein Pirush Rashi, and that's exactly how Rashi learns. But to say Asseres Hadibros every single morning in honor of Torah and in honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Asseres Hadibros chakukim beluches b'chtav elikim, because the luches were written, engraved in the luches, the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were. Mitzvah gedola la'omra. It's a great mitzvah to say it. V'chein kosav atur shetov la'omrei. Now, he adds, interestingly, why does he say it just before Baruch She'ama? So this is fascinating. V'ani soimchei leBaruch She'ama, ki beBaruch She'ama yesh paz tevos. There are 87 words in Baruch She'ama. Al derech ha'posuk roishei kesem paz. Posuk in Shir Hashirim. Posuk zen nidrash b'medrash ha'posuk rishon she'Asseres Hadibros. Hadvarim. That this posuk roishei kesem paz is alluding to the Asseres Hadibros. How? So Rashi on Shir Hashirim, I've just put it in brackets there. Rashi says there, Roisha Kesem Pos, that means Roisha, the beginning, Tchilas Tevarov, HaBehikei Kesem Pos, which shines like sort of bright gold. Posach Anochi Hashem Lekecha, the beginning, the opening words, Ai Anochi Hashem Lekecha, Herem Techila, Shemishpot Melucha Yesh Le'aleihem. It's got some sort of royalty about it. V'achakach Gaz Aleim Gezerosov. That then HaKadosh Baruch Hu declares that He runs the world, and then He makes the rules. So therefore, Reisha Kesem Paz refers to the Asseres Hadibros. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and therefore I put it's got 87 words in it. And it's a reference to Roisha Kesem Paz, since Baruch She'ama has 87 words, and the gematria of Paz is 87, the number of words in Baruch She'ama. Therefore, since Paz, Roisha Kesem Paz refers to Asseres Hadibros, I juxtapose it with Baruch She'ama, which also has 87 words. V'oid yesh tam yuchud, lefisha benusach Baruch She'ama, at hascholas habracha, dahainu Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hakel v'rachamon, yesh asara Baruch. It says the word Baruch 10 times. So the 10 baruchs in the Baruch She'ama correspond to the Asseres Hadibros. So therefore, just as a fun fact, the Marshal says, I say it before Baruch She'ama. Now, by the way, on the Ramah, previously when the Ramah says that you dafka say it b'yochid and you don't say it b'rabim, you don't say it b'tzibur, so the Mishnah Berurah brings this reason of the Marshal. Why didn't you say it b'tzibur? B'pnei ha'koifrim, says the Mishnah Berurah. People will say this is really the Torah, Asseres Hadibros. Of a prat bismanenu, and certainly nowadays, says the Mishnah Berurah writing 100 years ago, people might say that. We don't put up in like a plaque on the wall with a full Asseres Hadibros. Some say that you don't actually, there's no problem, the only problem is to actually put it in the middle of davening. That's really what the Gemara Brachos is referring to. And then mutaf b'tzibur v'ananakdin l'isa b'tzibur klal v'klal. But our practice is not to recite the Asseres Hadibros publicly, or v'yachid, and an individual can do it. However, dafka shlo b'teicha tefillah, not in the tefillah. Avol likver b'teicha brachas gam l'yachid also. But to actually put it in the brachas, even for a yachid, is going to be problematic. So at Kan, we've got the Gemara in Brachas, which says that we didn't. They abandoned the practice of saying the Asseres Hadibros in the Birchas Kriyashma because of Tarumas Haminim, because of the concern of heretics. The Shulchan Aruch says you say it every day, but the Ramah says Dafka b'yochid. The Rambam is strong against it, and is strong against saying it publicly, or standing, should I say, for the Asseres Hadibros, because people might think that this is the most important part of Torah, and there's some parts of the Torah which are superior to the other. And the Marshal says it's not a problem. It's not a problem, and the only problem is if you say it's as part of Birchas Kriyashma. Okay, now, Rabbi Vadia, of course, is going to follow the Rambam. And he says, for those people who are matter it, he says something very strong, very sharp. In Yechav Das, he says, V'ilmole ro achronim, the top of the next page, if you're listening online, email me at j.golker@gmail.com, I'll send you the handout. The Yechav Das says, V'ilmole ro achronim, Tshuvas Rambam. Had the later generations, the later poskim, seen the Tshuva of the Rambam, Asher Negidim Yedab El Vatla Minag Hazeh, who wants to cancel the minag, to stand for Asseres Hadibros, but V'adai Shelo Hayimar Hivim Oiz Lachli Kolov B'zeh. No one would have had the brazenness to argue with the Rambam. That's the Chavadas, and therefore you go to a Sfaradish shul on Shavuos or on Parshas Yisroi, and I haven't checked, but I presume they all follow the Rebbe Vadia, and that is the practice will be to sit during the Asseres Hadibros, as per the Rambam. Now, the question was put to Ramosha Sternbuch and also to Ramosha Feinstein, and both say something very interesting. Ramosha Sternbuch says the following. This is also, he has Tshuvas Van Hoggers, and in Krach Aleph Simon Kuf Mem Dalet, he was asked, should you stand for the Asseres Hadibros? So says Rav Sternbuch, Nagu Kol Yisrael Lamud Beis Kriyas Asseres Hadibros. The minhag is in Klal Yisrael, you stand for the Asseres Hadibros. Ubesidda Beis Yaakov, maybe HaMinhag Umasik She'en Yochid L'Shalatz MeHaMinhag, and the Beis Yaakov, which I think is Rabbi Yaakov Emden, says that you shouldn't deviate from that, and that is our practice to stand for the Asseres Hadibros. Va'ani Tomo, and I'm perplexed. Lama Lanu Lachlik Al Rambam Sha'isa V'Tshuvosov. Why don't we take on board what the Rambam says in his Tshuvas? Why is it the minhag that everyone stands? Divrei HaRambam Hem Nifloim Ve'ein Lozos Mimenu. The words of the Rambam are wonderful. Why don't we take them on board? Rak. It must be, says Ramosha Sternbuch, Bizman Hazeh Lo Chashin L'Tarum Saminim. Nowadays, we're not really worried of heretics. They're going to say that Asseres Hadibros has a greater superiority than the rest of the Torah. Aval yesh eitzah. He gives a good eitzah. What's the eitzah? Yesh eitzah la'nivastaiti lotzeis l'kul alma. That we can cover all our bases. How so? Royu la'amud k'tzas kodim kriyas Asseres Hadibros. You know what you should do? Don't stand up just before the Golker is about to start the Asseres Hadibros. Stand up a few psukim earlier. V'lo mamish Asseres Hadibros shelo yehi mukach she'omid rak v'Asseres Hadibros v'shari l'kul alma. And that way, people will realize you're not standing only for the Asseres Hadibros, but you're standing for other parts before. And therefore it's good practice to do that, to stand a few psukim earlier. Now, Ramosha Feinstein was asked this question, none other by his son, David. So he was asked this question. It's interesting what he says. Amidas ha'am b'Kriyas Hadibros malas kvod b'ni chavivi harav hagor marin harav David Feinstein Shlita. He was alive then, of course. Hine. Bedova Amidas ha'am b'shas Asseres Hadibros shenog b'sheyesh mefakvekvim mehal de'isa b'brachas tafyud beis. People sort of deliberate. Should they or should they not stand for the Asseres Hadibros based on this Gemara in Brachas? Avamash atzam mataritz, says Ramosha to his son Reb David, that which you suggest, machmas shenagu lamed gambas shiras hayam, b'parshas b'shalach v'shvish Pesach. There are other times in the Jewish year when you stand for parts of Kriyas HaTorah. For example, at the Shira, you stand parshas b'shalach shvish Pesach. Shemizeh royin she'ika oid dvarim sha'imdim. It's not just the Asseres Hadibros. There are other parts of Torah that you stand for. Af shelo shayach sham divrei haminim, and therefore the divrei haminim is not applicable to shiras hayam, and therefore yovinu shu mitamacher. and who teretz nochen, and therefore says Ramesh, people will understand that you're not standing because of because it's different to the rest of the Torah, it's the only true part of the Torah or anything like that, but rather chas v'shalom, you're standing because of you're trying to recreate Ma'amad HaSinai or whatever it may be, and therefore teretz nochen. And what you say, my dear son of David, is correct. And he finishes off Avicha Oyhavcha b'leiv v'nefesh Moshe Feinstein, a very beautiful sign off from Ramesha, the Father who loves you with his heart and soul. So, in the Litvische world, let's say, in the Ashkenazi world, Reb Sternbuch and Ramesha both suggest that you stand and there's no concern. And that certainly is the practice in many shuls. Please God, when we stand there on Shavuos morning, for those staying up all night, it will be it's probably a good idea to stand as much as you can, but so you don't fall asleep. But there's certainly in the Ashkenazi world, it seems to be prevalent. Minhag is to stand for the Asseres Hadibros. Now, just want to finish off with a very interesting piece in the Hari Kedem from Reb Soloveitchik. He is also addressing this question, and he comes from a totally different angle as to why it's not a problem. And this is fascinating. So the Hari Kedem was written by Reb Michal Sharkin, who's a Rabbi and a tremendous Talmud Chacham, lives in Yerushalayim, a Rabbi in Toras Moshe, and he wrote the Talmud of Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, and he wrote up a lot of his Torah, 3 volumes, and he's got a piece on this particular point. So this is what he says. Again, I've just extracted the main points. So this is the bottom box, paragraph 8. V'nira levai b'zeh, tehine. Hamina glikris Asseres Hadibros b'tam ha'elyon v'lo b'tam ha'tachtein. Do you know there are different ways to read Kriyas HaTorah? We read it every Shabbos in what's called b'tam ha'tachtein. Every bar mitzvah boy is taught in what's called tam ha'tachtein. It's a certain trop, and this is how we do it. But the Asseres Hadibros is different. That we lane it what's called b'tam elyon, and it's a different way. It's the same notes, the same trop, but it's just broken up differently. Ubir hachiluk, and the difference between the two is bein tam elyon and tam hatachtoin. Who the tam hatachtoin machalek is Asseres Hadibros the psukim. The tam hatachtoin we read every Shabbos, and the way you do Shnai Mikra, by the way, on Asseres Hadibros, is it's broken up according to psukim, like they are in the Torah. And according to the notes that are written in the Torah. But the other way, the tam elyon, it's not dividing it up into psukim, but into dibros. They're different pauses. For example, you could have, in the tam elyon, you could have many psukim together, but it's all in one dibur, because it's divided according to the dibros. For example, ha-pasuk lo sirtzach lo sinov shel pasuk echad b'Torah. It's all in one pasuk in the Torah. Mischalek al yedei hatam elyon nedalet psukim lechalukim. But in tam elyon, the way we read it on Shavuos, is divided up into 4 separate sections, because they're 4 different dibros. Melech Hashem dalet dibros. So you see that there's a difference between tam tachton and tam elyon. Now, with that in mind, says Reb Soloveitchik, v'kiven, middle paragraph, v'kiven shekein, yesh leimam, perhaps you can explain, tehine hatam sha'imdim ba'Asseres Hadibros, the reason why you stand for the Asseres Hadibros, she'ezeu mishum zecher le'ma'amad HaSinai. You are recreating Ma'amad HaSinai, and therefore, just like in Ma'amad HaSinai we stood, well, so too, for reading of Asseres Hadibros, we stand. To Kamosha Oz Omdu Yisrael Sivzahar, just like then they stood around the mountain. Al Kain Mishum Zeichel Lematan Torah or Ma'amad Har Sinai Onu Oimdim B'Asseres Hadibros. And for that reason we stand at the Asseres Hadibros. Vim Kain Nir Eloima. The Ein Lezestir B'Divrei Rambam B'Tshuva. It doesn't contradict what the Rambam is saying. The Rambam Ayri K'Shekori Ma'Asseres Hadibros B'Tamat Hachtein K'Shakrias HaTorah. Because the Rambam's practice, I don't know where he gets this from, but the Rambam's practice was to read the Asseres Hadibros b'tam tachtein in the normal way of Kriyas HaTorah throughout the year. That's how he read it. And therefore, the Rambam's reading of the Asseres Hadibros was no different to the reading of the rest of the Torah. And therefore, if you stand for the Asseres Hadibros when it's exactly the same leining as the rest of the year, then yesh b'minag zeh sat minas, it looks a little bit heretical. There's some superiority of the Asseres Hadibros over the rest of the Torah. Last paragraph. But we read it Batam Elyon. It's a different nusach. It's a different way of dividing the psukim. It's very distinct. It's very different to the rest of Torah. We're doing it differently because of Ma'amad Har Sinai. And therefore, there is no concern regarding the Asseres Hadibros. To call them Zeichel Ma'amad Har Sinai, it's not because of any inherent chashivas of the Asseres Hadibros. So a fascinating insight of Reb Sternbuch, Reb Soloveitchik, i.e. that the Rambam read Kriyas HaTorah Batam HaTachton and the Asseres Hadibros. And therefore, if you stand for Asseres Hadibros, it looks a bit funny. It looks like there's a Sad Minus. But we don't read it like that. We read it Batam Elyon, and therefore, it's very clear to the onlooker that we're only doing it because of Zeichel and Ma'amad Har Sinai. We're recreating Har Sinai, and therefore there's no concern. So, in short, do you or do you not stand for reading the Asseres Hadibros? Every shul, of course, should follow their own minhag. There is, of course, what to rely on. But the Rambam is very strong against it. You should sit, and no doubt that is the practice, says Ravadja follows that, and that is no doubt the practice in Sephardi shuls. Based on the Gemara and Brachos should base. The Marshal and Rosh Sternbuch and Ramosha all say that it's not a concern, because the issue is the only concern of the Gemara and Yevamos, in Brachos, is about Tarum Saminin, and that's only when you put it in the middle of Birchas Krishma and your daily davening, which we don't do. And therefore, if you stand, it's clear, says Rav Moshe, that it's not a problem, because you stand for other parts of Torah. No one's going to think differently about the Asseres Hadibros. We do that for the Shira, where there's no concern of Minin. You've also got Rav Sternbuch's Eitzah to stand a few psukim earlier, so therefore there's no problem whatsoever. And you've got Rav Soloveitchik's explanation of why even our practice is not a problem, Lefi the Rambam.